All right, it is 6:01, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So I just want to start off by saying welcome and good evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Maddie from MadDIY Marketing, and I want to thank you so much for joining us for which e-commerce platform is best for your business. This episode is a part of the Digital Shelf series, a series created in collaboration with Fund 17, Propeller, the Recirculating Farms Coalition, Food Policy Advisory Committee, and MadDIY Marketing. We created this series to bring food businesses together to discuss how we can adjust and adapt to a more digital shelf space that COVID-19 has placed a lot of food businesses in. Tonight, our presenters will be discussing insights into e-commerce and direct-to-consumer that you as a food business have access to, why it's important to have either your own digital store or work with a bigger partner. And we're so excited to be joined by Marguerite Green, Executive Director from SPROUT NOLA, and Lovey Wakefield, President, CEO of NOLA Cajun and eCommerce Solution Group. We are so happy to have y'all here. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin. Please remember to keep your microphones on mute. This episode is being recorded, so please be aware of this. You will get a copy of this episode to the email you used to register. And we also will be having a Q&A at the end of the episode, so please hold your questions until the end and we can get them answered. So that's all for the introduction. We are gonna go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for your attention. All right, let me share my screen. Okay, can y'all see my screen? Perfect. All right, I just need to hit present. Okay, so you're joining us for which e-commerce platform is best for your business. Again, a part of the Digital Shelf webinar series. Thank you for being here. So before we get started, as a marketing professional, I can't help but speak to the importance of staying on top of trends, consumer data within the industry that you work in. In this case, we're talking about food, we're talking about retail, we're talking about e-commerce. So I wanted to pull some data points of some recent studies that have been presented about customer behaviors in response to COVID. So e-commerce will account for 21.5% of total grocery sales, worth a $250 billion industry within 5 years, according to the new survey put on by Mercatus and Incisive. This was a study that surveyed 60,000 US shoppers, and from reading about this prediction, before COVID, it was a $100 billion industry. So now they're saying it's going to be worth a lot more. So paying attention to e-commerce is super important. In August of 2020, there was average order of $95 grocery orders online. This is the highest monthly total ever, according to a study put on by Brick Meets Click. And about 75% of customers who were surveyed said they were extremely or very likely to repeat a purchase with their most recent online grocery service provider that they'd done within the last 30 days. That's really huge. That is a great return for these online retailers who are providing, subscription services, grocery delivery to consumers. And one more data point, in 2019, in August, there was 16.1 million active online grocery users. And in this year, 2020, August, there was 37.5 active million grocery users. Huge jump. So getting into this e-commerce space is definitely recommended for anyone within the food, CPG, and retail space. A few non-data trends, subscription models are on the rise. Consumers are loving the ease, the access, and the repeat of getting either a box delivered by Hungry Root or a CPG subscription service. There are a few add-ons now with some of the online platforms that I'll talk about, where you can add this to your checkout cart. Really cool, and consumers are loving it. Also, pickup is the new delivery. So always have that as an option, you know, when you're thinking about building your e-commerce or, you know, offering a digital service. So Lovey and Margie will also talk about, you know, the importance of e-commerce, but some of the three, you have a lower overhead for your business. You have the ability to better personalize your product, the feel of your store, because you're building that experience through a digital platform, and buyer and brand loyalty. You have a lot of opportunity to tap into getting your customers to come back, if it's either through a subscription model or by your product is, you know, every 2 weeks, you know, they're coming back to purchase from you. It really helps you as a food business strengthen that loyalty. A few things to think about before launching into building your e-commerce platform or your e-commerce store, excuse me, and also before partnering. Consider your brand's existing capabilities, your needs, and which platform will deliver on these. I've pulled together 3 different platforms that I think would be helpful for beginning stages and for businesses who plan to maybe expand on products. Develop your shipping strategy ahead of launching your e-commerce store. I think this is super important, and a lot of businesses who have launched stores will say, understand how you're going to get the product to the customer before you even put your product online. And again, this is in relation to your own digital store. And then keep your retail relationship strong as well. Brick and mortars aren't going anywhere. COVID has definitely changed the customer experience inside grocery stores. No longer is it an enjoyable experience where you can get to know the products by holding it. People are really going to these brands that they know, these brands that they trust. They're grabbing them and they're going. So the brick and mortar is definitely continuing to stay strong. It's just now our shopping patterns, because of the global pandemic, has really changed customers' behaviors inside of the store. And so those are things to consider as well. So the first place, don't know where to start, Square Online. I'm going to start talking just a little overview of a few platforms that you can utilize to build your e-commerce store. It's now called Square Online. It used to be known as Weebly. Square purchased it. Square is probably the most affordable to get started. Their plans are at $0 a month. And something to consider in your budgeting is that a lot of these platforms will do a % fee and per transaction. So keep that in mind. This Square Online is very rigid in design. You don't have a lot of the flexibility or the templates that some of the other platforms do. They make it easy for you because you can drag and drop. They use the drag and drop functionality, which is they break up each part of the web page, and you can pick certain, designs or icons or copy boxes, and then move that to the specific part that you need. The cool thing about Square Online, if you're a food business who wants to utilize other tools like appointment scheduling or invoicing, point of sale, team management, and other features, it's really easy to integrate these tools with Square Online. The next platform that is good for food businesses and smaller businesses, Squarespace. Squarespace also is very affordable. Their lowest plan starts around $12 a month. It's known for its ability to build beautiful websites. They also use the drag and drop editor, which makes it very easy for individuals like myself, or that don't have a lot of coding experience, that don't understand HTML or CSS or Ruby on Rails, all those different types of codes that build the websites that we utilize. So super helpful feature that Squarespace does. And I know they have a lot of different design opportunities for you to utilize. This is the #1 choice of e-commerce if you're looking to accompany some content. alongside of your commerce. So say if you have a really wonderful blog, and you also, you sell flowers, or, you have a CSA program, and you're a farmer, Squarespace would be a really good opportunity for you because you can continue to build out your content alongside of your store. So again, this one's great for small businesses. It's very affordable. And, if the content is the number one, you can put that alongside of your store. It includes custom notification features. It does automation where it can include taxes and shipping and handling integrations. So there are more tools with Squarespace. And then this could be a downfall for some people, but they also use a third-party processor like Stripe or PayPal. So that's something to consider when you're looking at these platforms, is these third-party processors also have their own transaction, or their own percentage per transaction. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about the platform you want to use. And then the last one that I want to talk to, and the one that I have experience with, is Shopify. Shopify is kind of the first of their kind in terms of features. They were the first e-commerce platform to develop an app store. They have some cool app integrations that we can get into. But this is a little bit more on the pricey end, and it starts at $29 a month plus the 2.9% plus 30-cent transaction fees. It's built to power the small and the large e-commerce stores. So if you currently are a single product business, but you want to expand into multi-product, they give you the ability to do that in a really easy way. Something that's super cool about Shopify as well is their interface is super simple, but they also give you access to sales data and customer data. There's another episode in this series about analytics for e-commerce, so we'll get into more of that. But Shopify is a wonderful tool in understanding where your customers are coming from, what products they're buying the most. It tracks all that for you on a weekly, bi-weekly, and 30-day, 90-day basis. So that's super cool. It's not as easy to manage in terms of design as the other two. Sometimes it does require some code knowledge to make some edits to their templates. Again, they have access to hundreds of apps, or thousands of apps, excuse me, which is a pretty cool function. It doesn't require a third-party payment processor, so the fees you see are, unless you add on to your profile. They have their own Shopify payments. So they also include a Shopify POS. So as many of you are familiar with the Square, card reader, Bluetooth card reader, Shopify also gives you the ability to use a tablet and use readers to access your point of sale. They do social media integration. You can create discount codes. You can, create promotions. You can create ads. They really do a great job at integrating into your branding and your marketing. They also offer marketing services and integrate with MailChimp. And then the cool thing about Shopify as well is it's multi-currency processing. So you'll receive this webinar, and I can send some PDFs to it as well. But I just included a few cool apps that I thought would be helpful and give insight into other ways to utilize this platform. The checkout share gives customers the ability to share your store and get a reward. So on your checkout page, you can integrate the software and say, share this purchase, get 50% off or $5 off. Which is a really cool integration. And then Recharge gives you the ability to create subscription payments, which we saw earlier. We're not going to go too deep into the subscriptions, but yeah, that's on the rise for consumers. And again, their app store has access to over 2,600 apps. So something to consider, when you're thinking of building your shop. And one last thing I want to touch on, since this is, we're talking about, you building your own e-commerce platform or your own store. It is cool to see the landscape of e-commerce marketplaces that are popping up and growing. So I say non-Amazon because there are other outlets for food businesses to sell outside of Amazon. I know they are the largest, but there are other wonderful options out there. You're about to hear from Lovey at NOLA Cajun. There's Cratejoy, they do subscription boxes. Barn Raiser works with small batch value added, small batch products and farmers value added products, and they sell in small batches. Mouth is another one of those subscription services that offers really cool products and themed boxes. Direct Eats is a marketplace. Tienda has a lot of specialty foods, Spanish specialty foods, tapas, and then iGourmet is another one of those marketplaces to check out. So, thinking outside of the box when it comes to partnering, and we did have an episode earlier in the series on branding and how you can talk to how you can use your branding to pitch these online stores. So when the series is published, you'll have access to that, but it's just another great way to think about how you can partner with these digital marketplaces to sell your product and to different customers that might be located in other places. All right, so that concludes where my speaking. So I will stop sharing, and I believe Lovey, you are going to be speaking next.
Thank you so much, Maddie. I'm going to try to figure out how to share my screen. Give me 1 second here. Okay. And hopefully it's up. So, so my name's Lovey Wakefield. I am the owner of NOLACajun.com, and I'm also the president and CEO of eCommerce Solution Group. NOLACajun.com is an e-commerce site that specializes in New Orleans and Cajun food products. We basically ship the New Orleans food culture everywhere throughout the US and in some places worldwide. We started in 2008. We ship perishable foods nationwide, and then we also ship packaged foods worldwide. So because of some restrictions having, shipping perishable foods into other countries, we stick with just the packaged foods worldwide. And kind of touching base on what Maddie talked about and the different e-commerce platforms, I just kind of wanted to give you guys an idea, being that, we've been in business now going on 12 years. We have replatformed 4 times in our history, basically, starting out with 3D Cart back in 2008. A couple of years later, we moved on to eCommerce. We stuck with them for several years, and then actually spent some pretty decent money and went with Magento. That was our biggest move. We hired someone to do it, where the other 2 we had done ourselves. I kind of have a background in design, a background in marketing. And then after the Magento platform that we had been on was going to be phased out, we had a decision to make. Did we want to basically replatform again into Magento 2 or look for something else? And at that point, I decided to give Shopify a shot. And we launched that Shopify site in May of this year. And I've loved Shopify. I did it myself. It cost me nothing to do other than the actual cost of the Shopify, website. We do have several apps that we've plugged in. And that's the thing with Shopify is, you look at it and we're on the enterprise plan, which I believe is $99 a month. You look at it and you say, oh, well, considering that I spent, X thousands of dollars to replatform to Magento, $99 a month isn't that bad. I do use Shopify payments, even though we had used PayPal in the past. But the more you add on in your apps, it could raise that price significantly. And one thing that we've always kind of struggled with our website, because we ship both perishable and non-perishable foods, our shipping costs, kind of what Maddie alluded to, you have to figure out how you're going to get these products to these customers. Because we ship perishable foods, those things go in coolers. We have to use dry ice or gel packs, depending on what we're sending. And that's an additional cost on top of the actual cost of shipping, which shipping is expensive. And so we've always had to figure out a way to implement those costs into shipping programs, because a lot of times they either want to set a flat rate shipping, they want you to pull FedEx rates, which is typically what we do. It's difficult to mark up those actual FedEx rates with an actual markup that makes sense and doesn't make it huge for your customers, but also making sure you're not losing money in shipping, because at times the cost of the cooler, the cost of the dry ice, and that extra weight it's adding to the package can actually bring that shipping cost quite high. So, but Shopify's worked out really well for us. We were able to find a plugin that worked out great with our shipping needs. So if you are looking for a platform, I do suggest that one. Talking about pivoting with COVID. So when we started seeing the shutdowns with restaurants throughout New Orleans, I actually have a background in the restaurant industry. I was director of marketing for Commander's Palace for several years. And I noticed that some of these restaurants were making an attempt to pivot with CPG products, like actual consumer packaged goods. I saw Commanders, putting their turtle soups into containers and getting that into Rouse's. I saw GW Finn's, putting out I believe it was their ice cream and a biscuit mix. There were several different, decent sized restaurants. Ye Olde College Inn, I believe, was doing a crawfish mac and cheese, that were really trying to figure out a way that they could produce this alternate stream of income. And so, being that we are a New Orleans and Louisiana specific site, I reached out to several of these different restaurants, and one specifically, Red Gravy, that was in the warehouse district. They jumped at the opportunity to put their red gravy sauce on our website, and within the first month that we had it up there, we sold 400 jars of sauce for them, which was a completely separate stream of income for them that they were completely not expecting. And it allowed them to stay afloat a little bit longer and, being able to bring in a little extra money. They eventually shut down that location, but moved down to Magazine Street. But, talking with Roseanne there, she was very grateful that this allowed her to reach people, and she's always wanted to do that. And this gave a lot of these restaurants that opportunity to kind of test the waters and see if these consumer packaged goods would actually work. And what's happened is we've seen, for example, Commander's Palace jumping on Goldbelly and selling their products through there. They've opened Le Petit Bleu, which is kind of a little in and out, commissary that they'll sell turtle soups and such. I saw Frank Brightson, and he's selling cocktails to go and different items. It's something that you would have never seen just 2 years ago, but restaurants are finding a way to pivot and allow them to reach a larger audience, especially with this, the opportunity that they have currently. It's really interesting to me, because had we not had this shutdown in this instance, I don't see them taking the time to actually jump into this full force, knowing how the restaurant industry is and how so many restaurants can be just focusing on getting butts in seats. This really gave them a great opportunity. So, and us with NOLA Cajun, allowing them a platform to sell their products as well, that specifically reaches people that are looking for Louisiana products. And then my second company is it's eCommerce Solution Group. We're a fulfillment company, similar to a mini Amazon. We're a local company here in Kenner, and we focus on helping small to medium-sized manufacturers run their business online. We basically handle fulfillment and the shipping of their e-commerce orders. We started back in 2012, actually after the Commanders group of restaurants reached out to me to help them handle gift card shipping and their ties and help them develop a praline recipe and packaging and things of that nature. They wanted some consumer packaged goods. And, we built out a website for them. We handle all of their fulfillment, along with many other companies that are in Southern Louisiana, through Mississippi, and through the rest of the US, actually. So we assist companies with e-commerce build out, logistics, storage, and distribution, and then also fulfillment. But we specialize in shipping food, just like we do with NOLA Cajun, shipping perishable foods. We do Mrs. Wheat meat pies. We do Cajun kettles, crawfish Monica, specifically for those companies. So, Maddie kind of touched on, Amazon and why not Amazon and those types of things. One thing that I always try to stress to my clients is that you want to be able to retain your customer data. And while selling on these other websites is wonderful, a lot of them don't give you that opportunity. Many do, but Amazon being one that does not. If somebody places an order with you, you'll get that customer name, you'll get their address. You will not get their email address. So it'll be very difficult for you to reach out to them personally to order from you again. They will always come back to Amazon because that's where that order was placed. You don't own any of that information, and it's very difficult to get. Where if you have your own e-commerce site, you can point those customers to your site, and then you can retain that data, and then you can reach out to them again and market to them specifically based on what they've ordered from you. So to me, while selling on these other platforms is great and it's an opportunity for you to get your product out to more people, it's very important for you to have your own platform or your own e-commerce site for you to redirect those customers to if they want to purchase from you directly. So that's all I got, Maddie.
Thank you so much. Yes, I love that you spoke to the data and being able to kind of watch your customer's journey, see how they found you. We're definitely going to talk about that in a few episodes. So thank you for warming everybody up. Our next presenter will be Margie. So Margie, if you want to share your screen.
Sure thing. I feel like everyone's like, we're all kind of like, let me now try to do that. So here I go. And also not to bog you all down with all of the tabs. So hi, everyone. I'm Marguerite Green. I am the executive director of SPROUT NOLA, and we're a farmer and gardener technical assistance and training nonprofit. And that might lead you to ask why I would be doing an online marketplace, e-commerce, session with our wonderful partners, Fund 17. And it's because one of the things that we do as farmer support and technical assistance is what we call market stabilization. And so we do help farmers try to find new marketplaces for their goods that are sustainable and long-term and help them build businesses, at a good pace that can continue to pay, a good price for their product. And so that has led us recently to helping a lot of farmers pivot to online marketplaces. So what I'll be talking about in my bit of this presentation is very, very much agriculture and raw food specific online marketplaces and e-commerce. And that obviously does bleed into value-added products. So we see farmers all the time increasing their profit margin by doing their own fermented hot sauces or pestos, popsicles, all sorts of things that are made from their raw goods. And obviously that's part of a diverse market table. And so we definitely consider those products as part of our sort of farm community. So a couple of months ago, one of the farmers that we work really closely with, one of our sort of it's weird to say clients because we're a nonprofit, but one of our stakeholders, one of our pals, actually suggested to Sprout that we do an e-commerce presentation because he had had such a difficult time and it had been really breakneck figuring out how to adapt to still having customers, knowing that folks still needed fresh local food, but that at the beginning of COVID, both the market that Sprout runs, which is called the Refresh Farmers Market, and then our partner market, sort of the flagship market body for the city, the Crescent City Farmers Markets, had closed down due to safety concerns. And initially the Crescent City Farmers Market, and as well as Sprout through partners, Topbox, and with our friends Recirculating Farms Coalition, that we had moved to trying to do some online delivery and distribution of local food. And obviously that has a limitation. So we still had farmers who were looking for marketplaces for their food. So one of those farmers specifically reached out and was like, I had to choose what platform I wanted to use, basically under duress. And it would be nice if there was something out there for people to not have to make that decision, snap, and to, learn a little bit more about what's out there and how it serves farmers. So in the time between our first sort of survey of online marketplaces and e-commerce for farmers, and now we have learned so much. I believe that video is, shared or posted on both Fund 17's website and RFC's website, as well as Sprouts. And you'll see that we really were talking about the functionality of a lot of the things that Maddie was referring to, which is, building your own e-commerce on your own website through Shopify, through Squarespace. And those are all, those options actually, I think, look a lot more enticing now that we have gotten our legs under us about what it means to build a business that is agriculture based, but online. Because at first it felt like such an anomaly that going with a prepackaged sort of deal felt a little bit safer. So I want to talk about the specificity of what agricultural products need to be sold online and what we've learned. So with farm products and with fresh food, it is all about the pickup process. And if you are conceiving of an e-commerce solution that doesn't kind of take into account the whole process from ordering to when your customer gets your food, there's just a huge gap there that has to be figured out, and it will inform how you're deciding to pick your platform. Because I think a lot of the time people focus a lot on the platform, and then they think, and then I'll get the thing to the place that I decide people will pick it up, and they'll pick it up. And there's so much more to that. And so having a platform that helps you streamline that end process, whether it's something that helps you send out emails to all of the people that have put in orders that week, that can't be discounted, because otherwise you're going to be toggling between your own spreadsheets that you've made from exporting data and sending out emails. And if someone comes in after that order window, you're going to have to remember that they weren't added to the spreadsheet, and you need to go back and send them that email individually. So a lot of these platforms can track that data for you, and that's huge. The other thing that we're really seeing is that in order to entice people, especially now, I think, Maddie, you referred to it as pickup is the new delivery. There was a moment during the pandemic, and a lot of this is, during the height of the first wave of the pandemic. And I think a lot of this is anecdotal, but we're really seeing it bear out in New Orleans, where you could get people to show up or come out for one product that you were making. You could do a pop-up that was just one farm, that was just one type of baked good, and you could get people out. And I think that that has to do with people wanting a reason to leave their house and feeling like there was some extra safety in going and doing this one-on-one pickup. But as we've moved on, it is harder to motivate people to come out for just one vendor and just one thing. And so you need a diversity of products if you're going to motivate people to do the whole process of pre-ordering online and remembering a couple days ahead of time that they then have to come out and get it. I was speaking to a vendor at our market the other night, and she was essentially just like, it's hard to, a lot of my customers complain because they have to plan their menu 4 days in advance. And so that takes a lot of dedication. So if you're asking someone to plan 4 days in advance that they want one bunch of carrots, and that they will definitely show up and get that bunch of carrots 4 days later, that can often just be too big of a burden on a customer, and they might opt out of that. So having that diversity of product, because people really want to go to a place, and this is the same with markets, all like farmers markets that are in person as well, where they can feel like they get all the things that they need to make a meal or to have groceries for that week. And that sort of bleeds into the next point that I have, which is that niche really is only going so far right now. And so having a niche product or sort of a flagship product is an awesome way to have something that defines your brand and have something that maybe makes your greens different from someone else's greens. I think, Veggie Farmers Co-op has a really amazing model of this where they have like seed brittles and chili oils and all of these other things that are pulling you into a box program with them or a table with them. But you can't rely just on a niche product right now, especially online, because it's hard to motivate people out. I hope I don't know if my texts pop up on the screen. I'm sorry if they do. I can see them. So that being said, we really encourage everyone when selling online to team up with people. And that is often, we'll talk a little bit about those platforms, but that can just be easiest. That can just be done like very easily by each having your own e-commerce platform through something like Squarespace or Shopify, and then having a consolidated pickup location and everyone having their own process of accounting. Or it can be done by using a consolidated e-commerce platform like What's Good. So I'm going to talk about that in a second. But what I really encourage people to do, when you look at the amount of overhead that's required for some of these more complex programs, not like those lower cost programs like Squarespace that is only $12 a month, but if you're looking at something like Harvey, which I'll show you, there's a huge cost to start up, and it can be the right product for your farm, absolutely. But it's really, really nice to fall into existing markets that might have already made that leap to set up e-commerce solutions for farm businesses. And that speaks to the point of, making sure that right now, when we know that there is just so much demand and motivating people out to spaces requires this diversity of product, that falling into those existing markets can actually help, consolidate folks coming to a place and can help other vendors around you, and highest tides boost all ships. So pop-up markets are really amazing, and we're seeing some really, really cool pop-up markets that are blending online with walk-up, with durable goods and products and food, and those are awesome. But in terms of consistency for a place to sell a food product, it does make the most sense to go to an established market that already has a customer base. And then if you're having trouble, this is a little bit of a step off, but if you're having trouble getting your product into existing markets, I think it is a moment to evaluate your product. So we've seen a really big increase in bread vendors that are trying to come online into our marketplace with the Refresh Project and the Refresh Market. And it's really difficult because we cannot support 5 bread vendors at a small neighborhood market. And so I think looking at what the profit margin is on the product that you've decided to create and whether or not that demand actually exists for that product is a good moment to evaluate that if you're seeing that there's not a spot in any local markets for that product. And it doesn't mean that that's not the right choice for you, but it maybe means that your market avenue online or walk up is not a farmer's market. Maybe you need to pivot and go over to NOLA Cajun and get your product just on NOLA Cajun. There's all sorts of things to do. But then those pickup locations need to be easy, because the delivery of fresh food is really only going to make sense when ordered online if it's done in a box subscription program where there's like a good deal of food coming in and there is a large upfront chunk of money, because you do not want to end up in a situation where someone has ordered 1 head of lettuce and you are driving to them and charging a $9 delivery fee for that head of lettuce, or eating that gas cost. I think fresh food is so specifically different from a shelf-stable product, in that you need to have a cold chain where you're getting it from place to place and it's cold the whole time. You need to make sure somebody's there when you deliver. So we do really encourage people towards a pickup model unless what they're delivering is so high value that delivery cost can be tacked on without a huge bump in the price. The other thing is that when motivating people to use your e-commerce platform, we're finding that Instagram and Facebook are only driving so many customers these days, especially with click-through links and order windows. So it does seem to be a little bit confusing and difficult for customers to figure out how to navigate through an Instagram post that says the order window is Wednesday at midnight through Saturday at 2 a.m. Click here. But if you're ordering for this other window, click here. So that, I think, is a mark towards having an actual online presence where people can go to your own page and see your ordering procedures right there in one consolidated place. Sometimes a secondary e-commerce system is just a little bit more confusing. Again, we'll look at what's good in a second, which is what we use through the Refresh Market, and the Crescent City Farmers Market really brought to New Orleans and sort of implemented that. And it's been amazing, but it is also really disorienting for a lot of our customers. And we get emails all the time where people just want a link to buy a product, and that's just not the way that platform works. And then I want people, when they're selling fresh food, to really consider accessibility. So the desire to start your own online marketplace, or to start your own maybe online farmers market, or to start, having another pop-up farmers market where you're getting pre-orders online is amazing. And I love that community spirit, but there's always going to be a limit in the accessibility of those markets for fresh food, because in order to process SNAP benefits, in order to accept senior coupons, and big time in order to do any sort of market match program, which is administered currently through Crescent City Farmers Market through grants, that's not going to be something that's adaptable to an online platform that's created by an individual farmer or a collective of farmers that don't have those federal programs in place. So your marketplace will always have a limitation in food accessibility, especially for folks who are maybe struggling with their income during COVID-19 or before. And so it will create a customer base that has, more disposable income, which is awesome, because you obviously want people to spend money on what you're trying to sell, but it does cut out a part of your community. So I just really think it's an important thing for people to consider when they're building those platforms. And then the other thing is to consider your admin. So when you are deciding to maybe build your own system, or deciding to consolidate everybody under one system, we've seen a lot of people decide to, shove multiple farm products together on one platform, and then someone has to do that back-end accounting. And I always like to share, and I've redacted I'll actually escape to do this. I've redacted the names on my document, but it's, so this is like 1 week of the accounting procedures for how we consolidate all of our ordering that happens online. And then you can see this happens every single week. So we have weeks and weeks of this since the beginning of COVID, where we're doing online sales. And this takes about 3 hours of labor a week. And so, whoops, I didn't mean to share that. I'm on display. So it takes about 3 hours of admin a week. So I just like people to think about, do they want their program or their platform to just spit out numbers for them, or are they willing to do a little bit of that extra legwork? And then when you are picking an e-commerce platform, stick to something for long enough that the change isn't disorienting. So especially as a fresh food vendor, you are not trying to entice brand new customers every week. You're trying to build a customer base and have a relationship with those customers, and then build that base out further and further. So if you're asking people to order in a different way every week or every other week, you will lose customers in that process. If you're sending out a farm newsletter and 1 week you say the order window is Wednesday to Sunday and the pickup is Monday at this place, and I need you to follow this link, and then the next week it's a different procedure, those changes are going to be necessary, and customers will understand we're all adapting and stick with you. But if they're frequent, they can just be really stressful for people, and they're like, I mean, I've seen emails, farmers have forwarded me emails from customers that are just like, I don't even know how to order from you. I'm tired of this. And so you want to create an experience that is easy. I think that's the overwhelming point of having these e-commerce platforms for sales, is that you want to make it easy for people to buy your product, because they can just switch over to, Whole Foods on Amazon and get whatever they want that way. And so while we have some coalescing and community spirit around supporting local products, we need to try to compete. And obviously we're never going to compete with that high level of efficiency, but we need to try to make it as easy on our customers as possible so that they keep making that choice. And then the last thing that I really want to drill home is, in terms of lessons that we've learned, is having a plan for when someone doesn't come and pick up an order, or when they're not home and they have a delivery gets dropped off and it gets stolen. These sorts of logistics are not things that really small businesses or farm businesses are used to thinking about. Giant companies that have supply chain logistics professionals who know exactly how to handle everything, and know what to do if a package gets stolen from a door, and have the money to just refund a purchase. That's easy for them. But when you're a tiny business and somebody doesn't come pick something up, you will be faced with the idea of like, well, I did the work, I made the product, now it's rotting. Do I have to refund it? Do I have to set up another time for this person to come get it? And I think that the answer is personal. It's business by business, and it should be in line with whatever your brand is as a business. If you want to create a feeling where people are always, where the customer is always right, then you probably want to be more accommodating to changes in people's schedules. If you want to be educating people about the, actual logistics of a local food system, then maybe you want to be a little bit more strict with your pickup procedures so that people understand the value of everyone's time. So it's going to be personal, but I really, really like to encourage people to have that plan so that it doesn't blindside them when there's $90 on the line, which might actually be a make or break it transaction for a week. I'm going to check my time before I spiel too much on this. Okay. So I think one of the very biggest things that you should be thinking about when you pick a platform for selling agricultural products, again, that's raw food, or that's some prepared food with products that you've grown, value-added products, is how those items are listed and packed. So it goes back to that thing of, do you want people to be able to have one bunch of carrots, one bunch of celery, one head of lettuce, and they're putting that together in a cart, which is like an individual items in a cart model? Or do you want to have a bundle or a box? And that would be, that's a lot easier to have on Squarespace, where there's a $30 option. You select the $30 option, you get a market choice box of food delivered to your house or picked up in a certain place. That's pretty easy peasy. But a lot of companies need to think about whether or not they will have something that's outside of that box. Did they plan for their whole season to fit so perfectly into 30 boxes a week? And if they didn't, that might mean that they need to be selling 30 boxes a week and an add-on of carrots. And then you get into more customizable, ways to do a cart and to do delivery. And so at that point, you might want to start investigating some of those farm-specific platforms in order to get a hybrid of all of these things. So I think the very best resource that I can share this far out that we have ended up thinking is just a fabulous resource is this guide that the National Young Farmers Coalition put together. I'm going to click through it really quickly so that everyone can see what I'm talking about. It is a comparison of all the direct sales software platforms in this wonderful, beautiful, like drop-down checklist. And it talks about the things that you might want in your platform and which of these softwares, which of these systems have that thing. So for direct sales, here's a rundown of each one of these things. And the two that we really have here in New Orleans and that I have experience with and feel like I can speak to pretty well at this point is first, What's Good, which is more of a virtual farmers market than it is an e-commerce platform directly for an individual farmer, though an individual farmer could use it if they were setting up in a physical location for pickup on a regular basis. What's Good takes 5% of sales from the farmer, but I think that there's a really important distinction that frankly, I don't think What's Good is clear enough on, which is that they also charge a 5% fee to the customer as well. So if the farmer is conceiving of that 5% markup as something that that 5% take out of their profit, and they decide to up the amount of their product by 5% in order to accommodate it, the customer is also being charged another 5% on top of that. So ostensibly, if everything gets passed to the customer, that makes that food 10% more expensive, plus a credit card fee. So I do think that 5% sales is a little misleading, because your customer who might be used to something costing $5 is going to have to, realign to it costing $5.50 plus 20 to 30 cents of a processing fee. And while that might not sound like that big of a difference, it really can add up in people's food budgets. And obviously What's Good does a lot for their customers. I think that when we look at fees and stuff, it is easy to just be like, oh, they're taking a part of my money, but they're also making a huge part of your work easier, and they're handling all of the functionality of the platform for you. But if we don't see that as an actual 10% increase in the price for passing it all on to customers, then we can end up with angry customers. Hope that makes sense. What I'm trying to say is if the farmer's passing the fee on and What's Good is charging a fee, then we end up with customers who are paying 10% more plus processing fees. And so then also, with What's Good, there's very little customization from the farm side. So if you need to change your ordering hours as either a market or a farmer, you cannot do that. You have to go through tech support, and hopefully they make some changes to stuff like that pretty soon, but it can be very difficult to handle that. And the other thing that is a platform that is used around here currently only by one farm, which is River Queen Greens, is Harvey. And switching back really quickly to this slide, the thing about Harvey, which sounds like a movie title, the thing about Harvey is that it has a really large amount of functionality, and you can have people customizing what we call like market choice CSAs. So people are able to pick what goes in their box, and then it's very, very easy to add other people's products as well. So River Queen Greens is running this CSA box that they have been really building their brand around. Harvey's awesome for allowing logos to be, for putting their logos on all of the emails and making everything look super polished. And it feels like this really beautiful farm storefront when you log onto the page. It sends automated emails, which I think is key. And then you can opt to add somebody else's kombucha to your box. You can opt to add, again, veggies tofu. You can add, a breakfast burrito from the Lost line. So they're plugging in all of these awesome products or products from Indian Springs Farmers Cooperative. So other people in our food system, and they're making these really diverse boxes. And then the shopping experience for the customer is that they really feel like they are going and getting everything that they might want from a farmer's market in this box. And if you look back at the guide, it's a 7% of sales fee, and then that credit card transaction and a $500 setup fee. So that $500 setup fee can be pretty hefty, but if the 7% of sales is passed on to the customer, there's the 2.9. So it's about 10% as well, and a 30% and a 30-cent credit card fee, which ends up being pretty much in line with What's Good, plus that $500 setup fee. But the level of customization that a farm would be getting from Harvey is very high. So I just really encourage people to ask a lot of questions of these companies before you sign any sort of a contract with them. it is difficult, you know, sometimes on purpose, sometimes not on purpose, to really understand what the fees that are being charged are. And you don't want to end up in a situation where you're asking a customer for $4 for a product, and when everything has gone through the grinder, the amount of money that's being deposited in your bank account doesn't actually meet the cost of production of that good. And that can happen easily. So really ask those questions in all directions, and maybe even do a quick test run of your products just with friends and family before you go live. Because again, looking back at that system of not wanting to change what you're doing over and over again and disorient customers is really important. And I feel like I've talked a very long time, and I will pass it back to you, Maddie.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. It's like, I feel like I can sell fresh food now. No, I'm just joking. So we have a few minutes. I wanted to ask any of the participants or the attendees if they have any questions for our presenters. We can open up the floor. All right, well, that is totally fine. And we just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. This will be recorded. We will be sending out a recording of the webinar to the email that you registered with. And this series will become, the Digital Shelf series will become a YouTube series once the all of the episodes have been recorded. And I just want to let everybody know that our next episode is going to be a panel, and it is a panel we've gathered a handful of New Orleans food businesses, from folks who work with chefs and restaurants to CPG, to Margie will also be on the panel, talking about how COVID-19 has made these businesses pivot their business strategies, their marketing strategies, and how they're responding to the COVID-19 pandemic and the unknowns of, you know, what's next. So that will be on November 12th from noon to 1 p.m. So we hope you can join us. It will be moderated by Lauren Darnell from Minnow Foundation, the Made in New Orleans Foundation. So we hope to see you there. And again, thank y'all so much for being here tonight. And we hope you learned a lot. Any questions come up after seeing this, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'll put our contact information in the information below the video. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.